I need to bring it to every man's attention that our sisters didn't become bitches till you became a dog. So I ask you to just make up your mind to be a king, just for shits and giggles. Okay? Make up your own mind to just stand up and be a king. And I guarantee you, our sisters will stand beside you. And
Last question, how do you...
Welcome back to the Sisters Talk podcast. I'm your host, Danny M, and I have a very special guest today. I'm super excited. Miss Ladybyrd, thank you. Thank you for being
You're
here.
welcome.
Wow, like this is like, I've had some people on the show, but this is totally different for me. Like I have been watching you for a pretty good while. Caught one of your live videos maybe about a year ago, and I was shocked. I was like, this woman is so transparent, it's scary. Like you didn't hold back. And I don't know, one of those clips you were upset about something. I can't remember what it was about, but you were telling your raw truth. And here recently, I saw your daughter. She got on a live on Facebook. I think maybe she did a TikTok originally, but it made it over to Facebook. And I was watching it, and she started telling your story. And I was like, parts of your story that I didn't hear you tell, you know? That's what made me reach out to you. So thank you for being a guest today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Most definitely. Well, before we get started, I want you to tell everybody who you are, where you're from, if you're okay with letting us know that, and what you do.
Yeah, so I am Ladybyrd. I'm a mom of 4. Like you said, I have my oldest daughter. She's almost 20. My twins are 15. My youngest is almost 9. And I am an HIV and AIDS advocate. Have been doing this for the last 14 to 15 years. Literally after my diagnosis, it kind of just became a part of life. I am also back in school right now. Started back in the fall of this past fall in school. My end goal is to become an infectious disease physician. So that is what I'm working on. It's my passion. I mean, no matter how many times I try to walk away from doing this, getting frustrated, I find myself back here. So I'm here to continue doing it. And that's what I do.
I love it. You finally listened to your calling.
That, yes.
You
I
listen.
tried to run. I kept trying to run.
Listen, it's always, universe is always going to bring you right back into a place where you need to be. So that sounds beautiful, and we need that. We need someone who can speak up, educate us, talk to us about what's really going on from a book standpoint and also from real life experience. So we appreciate that so much. I want you to, I don't even want to wait. I want you just to let the audience know about your journey. I mean, some of us who follow Miss Ladybyrd, we already know the premise of why we're here. But for people who are new to who you are, please, I'm going to mute myself. The floor is yours. Shout out to the Floor is Yours podcast too, by the way, before we get started.
Yeah, and everybody that's watching, hello. Thank you for tuning in, especially my followers. I know I've been putting the call out for them to come and support. So yeah, my story starts in 2003. Starts September 2003 when I'm introduced to this, I say he's handsome, this handsome man. And at the time I was pregnant with my oldest daughter. And so being introduced just as someone who amongst, the family and friends who had not met him. We were at his mother's house for a Labor Day party. And she's just like, oh, you never got to meet my son. We're here, hey, come here. Let me let you meet Renee. And so he comes over, we're introduced. And that was that, we become friends and we remain friends from that moment because we kind of had this, like, we clicked as friends. we kind of had the same type of humor. We liked the same types of music, different things. So we clicked as friends, and we stayed friends for about 2 years until we realized, like, wait a minute, it's a little more than, friends. We started actually wanting to hang out more than just friends. And so we would go, he would come visit his mom because he's not living here in Florida. He's in South Carolina. And so he comes back and forth as he's visiting his mom. We're going and hanging out, and we get into a relationship. So about almost a year and a half, 2 years into the relationship. So now this is, 2000, end of 2005, going into 2006. We just had a conversation. We're like, he's been married before. I've never been married, but I felt like I was ready for marriage. And I guess that's because of my background. I was always brought up around people who I always saw married. My parents had been married since pretty much almost right after high school. They graduated 72, 74, they were married, and they're still married to this day. My grandparents were married until my grandfather passed, So I've always been around that type of environment. So I'm like, okay, I don't need to go out here to the club, done that, been there, done that, partying, all of that stuff. And so I'm like, okay, well, yeah, I believe I am ready for that step. So we had that conversation, and we decided that we were going to get married. Now, with him living in South Carolina and me living here in Florida, I know they always say, no, what they call it, no shacking up. And so my, that for me, that was always something that I was not always so sure about, because I'm like, well, what if I don't shack, what if I don't live with somebody and then I move in and we together, and then I'm like, I can't deal with that. So my whole thing was, I understand what grandma always say, no shacking up, but listen, grandma, you don't have to look down on me and see me shacking up.
Right. You try to do everything. The way you have to do it.
And so I had to just say, you know what? So in December 06, I relocated to Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And once I got there, I enrolled in college. I started working at Home Depot there and just started doing my thing. I even was doing work study at the college on top of a job. And prior to that, I was a medical assistant and a phlebotomist. So, I drew people's blood. I worked in the medical field. I had the knowledge of, things, especially with HIV and AIDS and, things of that, dealing with blood. That's something you really have to understand and know about. And so every year I would go and get tested. It became a habit and a routine for me since 2004, because that's what I did for years. And so, keeping with my routine, I went ahead and I said, well, since we're getting ready to get married in a couple months, why don't I go ahead and establish myself as a patient at your primary care physician? He had one that he had been going to for some years. We're getting married. Let's go. And I say, well, I'm going to go do my annual physical and do my, testing and everything. And I said, well, do you want to come and get tested as well? And there was no hesitation. He was like, yeah, sure. So we went. I had the appointment, sat down, met the doctor. We did our testing. Now, a lot of people, for some reason, a lot of people don't realize that when two people go together to get tested, things are done in separate rooms. You're not sitting in the same room getting tested, because they're taking you in another room. They're going to ask you questions. They're going to ask you about your sex history, drug history, all these things they're going to want to ask you about while you're going to get STD and HIV testing. So that's always done in separate rooms. And we had already, discussed, I explained stuff to him, and that was that. And so I got in one room getting tested. He's in the other room. And at this point, it's 2007. There's no quick test in 2007. You can't just go and say, 20 minutes later, you get your results. 2007, they were drawing your blood and you were coming back in 2 weeks and get your results. So we came back. We had already said when we come back, we're going to sit in front of the doctor. We're going to discuss our, results of everything. And so we sat in front of this doctor. you know, they had already given me and him both of our information. So I let him know, well, you know, on my STD test, everything came back, said they were negative, and he told me the same thing. And that's what I knew. That's what he knew. I didn't show him my paper. He didn't show me his. You know, we're sitting right here in front of this doctor. I trusted him. You know, you know, he's trusting me. I mean, we are literally months from a wedding. So
Wow.
I felt like, you know, I never thought anything of it. So here we are 2 days before the wedding. We get here to Jacksonville to his mom's house,
Mm-hmm.
and she pulls me outside and she says to me, has he ever said anything to you about HIV? And I said, well, no, why? And she said, well, just go ask him about HIV. Like those were her exact words. I'll
Mm-hmm.
never forget it. Those
So
were her exact
how did you feel right there in that moment when she asked you that?
Honestly, when she said that to me, my first thought was, what in the world she trying to pull now? Like that was my thought because of the type of person I knew she was.
Mm-hmm.
Like it had nothing to do with the fact that she even said HIV. My whole thought process went to the fact like, hell, she finna start some foolishness. That was my thought because
Right,
that
right.
was the type of person she was.
Mm.
And so I say, well, you know what? You wait right here. I went in the house, I pulled him out, and put them face to face.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, your mom just told me to ask you about HIV. What is she talking about?
Mm.
He looks at me, looks at his mom, and he says, well, I don't know what she's talking about. I don't know why she told you to ask me that. And now I'm looking at his mama like, okay, well, why did you ask him that? You know, I'm looking at her with this look, and she didn't say nothing. So at that point, again, she ain't open her mouth. She ain't call her son a liar, none of that.
Right, right.
So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, she just trying to stir up some foolishness,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And then we went ahead, got married.
Right.
Again,
Wow.
still nothing, no issues. We at the wedding, you know, we're at the wedding. She's not acting any different than she's act with me before. You know, they had a mother-daughter dance. All, you know,
Mm-hmm.
everything is like not like it was almost as if whatever she thought she was telling me or whatever, like it was like, okay, well, you know, you know, that's how it made me feel like, dang, well, she must have really was trying to do, you know.
Right.
So we went and got married. Then a couple months later, the end of October, I found out that I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, we had sex before marriage, but we never had unprotected sex before marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So our wedding night was the first time that we had ever had unprotected sex.
So
And
hold on before you go further. Y'all both got tested. Y'all were having protected sex up to that point, up until marriage, right? Mother-in-law
correct.
push you to the side, ask you, has he talked to you about or said anything about HIV? You didn't think much of it. You thought she was with the drama, right? You
Right.
bring him face to face. He had his moment to tell you the truth. Still didn't choose to be honest. Now you've gotten pregnant. That's where we are.
Right. Yep. And so I go to the OBGYN, do my, you know, they have you do prenatal labs. They have you do the questions where they ask about family history. So we do all that. I wasn't scheduled to go back to the doctor until the Monday after Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
And so the day before Thanksgiving, that Tuesday or that Wednesday, I got really like, I was throwing up a lot, like just throwing up, nauseous, couldn't keep food down, and I got extremely dehydrated. All pregnancy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm getting extremely dehydrated. I go in and they hook me up to the IV machine. Now I'm sitting in this little room, like this real small room. It's just a recliner chair, an IV pole, and a lamp on the table. This is in an extra chair. That's all that's in this room.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting in this chair. He's there. I'm hooked up to the IV. They're giving me the fluids, the nausea medicine. So I'm drowsy. The doctor comes in and she says, is it okay if I talk to you alone and then bring your husband back in the room? I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
So he steps out. She comes back in. She says to me, well, I got your labs back and everything's okay except one thing. Now, with my oldest daughter, I had gestational diabetes toward the end of my pregnancy. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm probably finna have to do this insulin all over again and stuff like that. That's my thought.
Right.
And I say that to her, and she's like, well, no, actually, your glucose is fine. So now I'm thinking, okay, well, what's wrong? She
Mm-hmm.
says, well, your labs came back and said you're HIV positive.
Mm.
And she said, well, well, first, when she said that to me, I got numb.
Right.
Like, I didn't know how to react because, again, I'm not drowsy from the medication. She's telling me this, and I'm just like, it was a moment of just everything replaying in my head. The moment when, now I'm thinking, okay, his mom said me to ask this. Okay, so that means he lied. Like, everything's playing in my head, those moments before all of this. I'm thinking about the doctor, because now I'm like, well, wait a minute. We went and got tested. He was negative. Like, all of this is playing in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so she said, well, do you want me to tell him, or do you want to tell him? I said, well, you can bring him back in and you can tell him, because if you're telling me I'm HIV positive, he is the reason why.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
so, yeah, so she brings him back in and she tells him. He's not shocked. He's not in disbelief or anything. He's
So
kind
he
of more
wasn't
non.
reactive. He wasn't reactive at
No,
all.
he
Wow.
had no real true, reaction to it. But besides telling her, well, we'll get through this and we'll work it out.
And
And
what was your response? I know you were still under the influence of the medication.
yeah,
But
I was just like, I'm ready to go. And we get in the car, and as we're in the car, before we even pull off, he looks, I'm still sitting there drowsy, whatever, and he says to me, don't tell anybody.
are you? Wait a
Yeah.
minute. Hold
Mm-hmm.
on. Hold on. I'm sorry. You mean to tell me this black man's response to a nurse coming in telling his pregnant wife that she is HIV positive is his response is don't tell anyone?
Yeah. Don't tell anyone.
Come here, black
That's
man.
what he says to me in the car.
Black
Yep.
men,
He says,
listen up that are tuned in. See, this is the reason why black women don't trust black men. Not because of this one particular scenario, but it's deeper than that. Because a lot of men, especially African American men, lack communication skills. There were several situations along this journey that Miss Ladybyrd just mentioned where he had the opportunity to come clean to her, right? And chose
right.
absolutely not to do it. This is the very reason right here. I'm sorry to interject. I just had to make that
Oh
point.
no, you're fine. Yeah, that
This is
absolutely
crazy.
is.
This is the craziest story I've ever heard in my
Like,
life.
he had so many opportunities. Not only him, but his mother, had opportunities. Um, and the end result of all that was basically, I left. I made the choice the end of December, because we got married August 4th, 2007. I'm finding out I'm pregnant October. November 21st, 2007, the doctor's telling me my status.
Mhm.
December, I leave.
Mm.
And I left him New Year's, like literally New Year's Eve, going into New Year's Day is when I left. And I'm back here in Florida. I'm back in Jacksonville. And, he's still calling me, want me to come home, want me to work things out, not divorce him, leave him, and then at one point even says to me, well, you might as well stay with me because nobody else is going to want you.
Oh, wait
Yeah.
a minute. Further damage? So
Yeah.
the question I wanted to ask you before you just said that is at any point after the diagnosis, your diagnosis, did he try to explain what happened? How long had he had HIV?
No,
Because
I
you
could
guys
not
were
get
actually
answers from
friends
him.
before you
Like,
dated.
I literally would ask him questions to try to get answers from him. Like, when did you find out you had it? Why you didn't tell me? Like, who else have you, like, I even asked him
Well,
who else
apparently he had it
could have given
before
it
he got
with,
with you.
given it to.
Yeah, apparently he had it before he got with you because that's why the mother asked you, have
Right.
he talked to you about HIV? See, that would have sent chills down my spine. But I understand you were saying you and his mother were on some different energy, so I can understand why that wasn't the first response, right?
Right. Yeah.
Guys,
Yeah.
this is crazy.
I did ask him those questions, but then it got to a point where at that point, my aunt, she called me on the phone and she said, turn on the news. I'm looking at the news Here in Jacksonville, Florida, there's a homosexual couple. The older man, knowing it had infected the younger man. In the state of Florida, that's a third-degree felony crime
Right.
with a max sentence of 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so that guy ended up going to prison for those 5 years. And so my aunt was like, well, didn't that happen to you? Because at this point, I've told, my aunt and different
Right.
people what was going on.
Family knows
People
now.
start noticing, oh, hey, she's back in Florida. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And so I called the sheriff's office. I say, I just saw this on the news and this just happened to me. I say, but is it a crime because I'm married?
Mm-hmm.
And the detective said, well, did he tell you? Did you know ahead of time? And I said, no, I had no clue.
Right.
And I kind of explained the same thing to him. Like, we went and got tested. He said he was negative. We sat in front of the doctor, and that's when the detective said to me, did you ever see the paperwork? And I said, no. And that's when he was like, and that kind of gave me that thought too. Like, I ain't see the paper.
Right.
So he said, well, I need you to do a written report. So I did the written report. They were able to investigate, do everything. And the detective called me Valentine's Day, 2008. He called me and he said, well, we've investigated. We have a lot of stuff. He said, but we also want to know if we can get something that's going to be solid, like that's going to stick, that he can't question it, no way, shape, fashion, or form.
Right.
And I said, well, what is that? And he said, well, do you give us, because in Florida, it's a one-party consent. He said, do you give us permission to record your phone conversation with him? I said, absolutely. So I said, well, what are you needing to know? And so literally a lot of the questions they needed answers to were questions I'm asking him about his diagnosis and where he got it from. And I wrote the stuff down and I called him on a three-way with them recording it. And I asked him these questions because, again, at this point, he wants me to come home.
Right.
He's wanting to save it. He doesn't want me to leave and all this stuff. And so he's willing to answer these questions. So finally, I'm getting the answers to these questions.
Right.
I hang up with him. I said to the detective, I said, you got it? He said, oh, I got it. He did. He said, oh, I got it. And he said, we'll be back in touch. And I think within probably a week or two, they did their investigations and they issued. No, it probably wasn't even a week or two. This was February. So yeah, probably by early March, they did everything they needed to do and issued a nationwide warrant for his arrest.
Wow. You deserve applause for that, honey. You went through a lot. You went through a lot.
That's the minimum of, that's like the bare minimum of days. Right. That's like it was levels to it, everything.
Wow.
But yeah, that was like the main stuff, and then on top of finding out about other people that he could have possibly infected or did infect, infidelity.
And even when you guys were together, when you were dating.
Yeah, there's a whole woman that has a baby from him while we were married, who he's still with today. Because he told her, look, he told her the same thing he told me. You might as well stay with me because nobody not gonna want you. And she stayed, and I didn't. And she's still with him.
Question to you: how did you and how are you currently remaining sane through this whole ordeal? What is your remedy?
Now in this time, I do meditations. I listen to things that I would consider inspirational, stuff like that, because at one point I turned to drinking. I was at the stove like every week. My bottle was empty. I need another one. It was to the point where at some points early on in my diagnosis, when I say early on, I'm talking like 2008, 2009, by 2010, I say, you know what? I got to stop. Right. So eventually I did go like cold turkey. And then it became a thing of here and there. I would, drink here and there occasionally or socially. But then a couple years ago, I just said, you know what? I just need to stop, period. So I literally went cold turkey one day and I haven't picked it back up since. And
I
that's
know
going
that's
on.
right.
It's
Amen.
over a year now.
Congratulations.
So, but that was one of my biggest coping mechanisms. But now I just find other things to do. I stay busy. I'm homeschooling my youngest. I'm doing things on social media. I'm constantly speaking. I'm back in school. So I find things that motivate me and keep me going and pushing me to just do that. If I
Yeah,
don't,
keep it positive, right? I wanted to ask you too, because being a mother is already hard, but being a mother with all of this going on in the background, how does that affect you as a person? Not even as a mother, but just as a person, because you know you have your babies that depend on you.
right. Yeah. I mean, it gets a little overwhelming, especially, my oldest daughter, she's now an adult, which all of this, she literally experienced her whole life. Like she went through this with me, and was seeing things. And, that's why when like the video you saw of her on TikTok, that was from her perspective of what she witnessed and what she saw.
Right.
And for me, I didn't know she did that video until like the next day. She's like, Mom, I did a video on YouTube. Here, go look. And I go look, and it's already at like 1 million views. And I was like, wait a minute, what? And
And
then
I saw some people trying to comfort her, and that's why I put up there. I appreciate the transparency, because see, y'all don't know how much you are blessing our community. Because, like I told you behind the scenes, this topic is very much taboo, as you stated.
Right.
The only person I know of personally, Magic Johnson, when he came out with his diagnosis, because he kind of didn't have a choice. It was gonna get spread around anyways. But you, as a Black woman, living your life not as a celebrity, you're a celebrity now, but I mean, before that, as an average person, day in, day out, I commend you, because who else is going to do that? Who else is going to do it? So we appreciate you. Our community appreciates you, because you're going to educate us in ways that we couldn't get from the doctors. Like, even you sitting in front of your doctor with your soon to be husband next to you and them knowing the diagnosis, the reason why they couldn't release it, I assume, was because of HIPAA. Right?
Yeah, HIPAA law and the Privacy Act. Because so as I'm thinking he's in a room getting tested like I am.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually in the room with the doctor, and the doctor is telling him, you're HIV positive. I can give you options. I can tell her for you, or you can tell her.
Wow.
And so the doctor literally did his part. The doctor let him know, hey, you need to disclose to her. And if you don't want to, I can for you, but I can only do it with your permission. And so he tells the doctor that he's going to tell me. So the doctor, again, this is not a new doctor to him. This is his regular doctor. So this doctor's trusting that he's going to do the right thing. The end result is he didn't do it. And through the investigations, once they were able to contact the doctor, that's when they found out. And that's when the doctor found out he didn't tell me.
Wow.
And so it's like, it's one of those things where we have these HIPAA laws and these privacy acts in place, but sometimes it hurts. It hurts it because you have these doctors and these nurses and people who work in the medical field who see this every day. This is something that they see every day.
I'm sure.
And they cannot open their mouth because they're at risk of either being sued or losing their license, or both. And I understood that from the very beginning, because I at one point took that same oath as a medical assistant and a phlebotomist. So
you knew it from both sides. Oh my.
Yeah, so I saw it from both sides. And so people always say, well, you should have sued the doctor. And I'm like, why? He did what he was supposed to do. Right. And then with his mom, even though I would have wished that his mom would have opened her mouth and said
more. Yeah.
It wasn't her obligation either. But I felt like as a woman, a woman, and as someone who I knew before him. Yep. Remember, she introduced me to him.
Oh,
I knew her.
I missed that part.
I knew her at least a year to a year and a half before I even was ever introduced to him by her. We were at her house when when the introduction was
The
made.
stuff I want to say belongs behind the scenes, not on this show. That is crazy.
Right.
Woo! Because, baby, you talk about an orange jumpsuit with some shackles on, that would have been me
Mm.
on Fox News. Because stop
Listen,
playing
I
with me.
kid you not, you would not be surprised how many people it took to make me stay in the state of Florida or not go across to that woman's house. They was like, Renee, don't do it. Don't. What are you doing? You pregnant? Don't go to that woman's house. I was
Oh,
listen. I
wow.
was really. They had to literally take car keys from me because I was finna get in the car and drive all the way back to South Carolina
Rightfully
when
so.
things started unfolding because they like just my one act of putting his face on the news showing that he had done this to me
Mm-hmm.
caused a domino effect of other things to come out. The amount of people that he possibly had infected
Oh, my.
and you know, just people just running to the health department to go get tested. It caused so much stuff. It caused a whole corporation, BMW Manufacturing in Greer, South Carolina. It caused them to change their policies of how employees fraternized on the job.
Ha! I know it did. I
You
bet
see
it
what I'm
did.
saying? Because
Oh, yeah.
he was sleeping with so many people at these people's place of employment. He had worked there for 5 years.
Mm.
And so it caused a whole lot of stuff to transpire. To the they even told people there, if we hear you talking about it, you're gonna risk losing your job. Like that's how serious the whole thing was. It was just
I
yeah.
have to say, the saddest part of this story is the fact that you tried everything in your heart to do everything the right way. From what I'm
I
hearing from
did.
you did things step by step. So here it is. This is my opinion on your journey. And first of all, thank you for being so transparent today with your journey because it was not an easy one. And I know you're still on your journey. So thank you. But what I took from that is when your guys are going to go get tested before you decide to have unprotected sex, look at that person's paperwork. If they do not agree to let you see that paperwork, don't do it because
And
it
see
must
that
be
paperwork
true.
at the clinic. If they don't want to go to the clinic with you to get tested and you see the paperwork at the clinic, then question the authenticity of that paperwork. Because listen, I have witnessed people will come to me. They literally will come to me, show me documentations from the health department, say, well, this is what my partner brought to me.
Mhm.
And I'm looking at it like, this is like
It's not
Photoshop, right?
legit. Oh,
Yeah, like they are photocopying and making fake um test results and giving to people. So that's why I encourage people not only look at the results, but look at the results at that place where you are going to get tested and getting those results. If you getting on that little van that says 5 minute, 20-minute testing, that's where you need to be seeing them test results right then. Don't let them bring you the piece of paper and say, oh, here's my results. And if
right.
they do, then say, okay, well, let's go together and let's go verify these test results. Let's go to this
Yeah,
place right here that you
facts.
say on this paper that you went and got tested, and let's go make sure this is really from this place. Because
Call them bluffs.
one thing they can do is they can't tell you someone's personal medical information unless you are a third party person to receive it. But they can verify or let you know if a documentation is legitimately theirs or not.
Right. I love that. Thank you for giving that information. Say that one more time for the people that are listening. That
Yeah,
last part.
that last part. So you can take the paperwork someone brings to you, and you can take it whatever name it has, facility. You can take it to that facility and have them verify if that is legitimately their documentation that they give to people or not, and they'll
Yes.
confirm or deny it. And that is where it starts. If they tell you no, this is not how our paper looks, then you need to be questioning the person. Because a lot of times people, they so ready to have sex. I was saying this the other day. I'm like, sex is not going anywhere. Sex has
They're
been
ready to get
here
it in.
from the beginning of time. Like sex has been
Mhm.
here. It
They're
does
ready to
not
get
take
in.
like you
And
could
then we
wait
live in
to
a
find
culture
out.
where it's like, cheating is the thing. Like it's seen as a cool thing by a lot of men. It's just crazy because, I was pulling up some stats last night, just kind of looking to see how Black women fare with HIV. We're like the highest percentile, the highest.
Yes.
And I'm knowing that it's because a lot of our men that we're sleeping with, they fail to communicate. A lot of them do
Yeah.
like men and women, and they're failing to communicate. And I'm not saying they're always getting it from the men that they're sleeping with, but it's a possibility.
Right.
So all I say is check the person's paperwork. That's what I'm getting from your story. Check it.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, I tell everybody that is the biggest. Like, people always say, "Do you have any regrets in life?" That is the only. Like, literally, I just turned 40. Out of 40 years, that's the one thing that I honestly can say I regret not seeing, like, seeing that paper.
Right.
That was a simple step that I could have taken that I didn't, because I was doing what I should have been doing. I was trusting the person I was getting ready to marry.
And you did. And that's the one thing that we get the most complaints about as Black women, is that we don't trust our partner. But here you are on my show today, giving us all the reasons why we need to second guess some things. We need to double check some things, especially when it relates to our health. Now, I do want to ask you, is like I said, being a mother, how has that this situation affected your relationship with your children?
Not really. Hasn't really affected. I think, if anything, especially with my oldest daughter, it's shown her a lot of stuff, because most of her friends, they don't get they either they didn't or they don't get the talk, like, with their parents about sex or STDs or things like that. So a lot of her friends, they've heard the education from me. It's opened that up for them, not intentionally, but it's just because if they're around her and maybe they're around me and I'm either having a conversation or I'm doing something in regards to it, they're hearing it and they're like, "Oh, your mom is so cool to just talk about this like this," and stuff. And it's showing them, and
Right.
then with the twins, they both have disabilities. So honestly, I mean, they don't really understand what's going on or what has even taken place. They just, all they know is I'm mom.
Right.
Sometimes I'm on my phone too much
Now,
and
was
I'm
that
not
a
sleep up.
effect of the situation that we're talking about today? Is that a result of their condition?
Um, so no. So, well, okay, yes and no. So they were born at 23 weeks and 6 days gestation. So one day, from me being 6 months pregnant, my
Mhm.
water broke. And it
Mhm.
wasn't because of my diagnosis per se, it was more so the stress.
Right.
My body was under a lot of stress because, again, I'm doing a lot of this stuff, like filing these charges and doing these things while
Mhm.
I'm still pregnant.
Mm.
And so my water ended up breaking as I was on bed rest, because they put me on bed rest. Doctor was like, "You doing too much. You need to lay down."
Right.
And I was on bed rest. And while on bed rest, my water still broke. And so
Mhm.
it was a result of the stress of what I was dealing with. Because, again, I was unfolding so much stuff. Like, I'm unfolding, you know, him finding out that he's slept with a man or possibly
Mm. So
multiple
he
men.
did sleep with the man.
I talked to a man who said they slept with him. Whether
Oh,
he wants to confirm or deny it or whatever, listen, I know who I talk to,
right.
and so dealing with hearing that, because that almost sent me in the car. That was one moment they definitely had to take the car keys from me.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Oh,
And
respectfully. Yeah, respectfully.
and then just a lot of other stuff, just putting all that stress on me, and that's how my
Yeah.
water broke. So my
Well, that's
son has
understandable.
cerebral palsy. He's in a wheelchair. He's completely dependent on me. And my twin girl, she is on the autism spectrum.
Hmm.
So that's why I say they both are to a point with their disabilities that they won't really understand what's going on. They just know I'm mommy,
Hmm.
basically.
Now, does the father, is he still active in their life, or is he's away?
He's never seen them other than pictures.
Hmm.
I mean, I've never blocked him on social media, so he follows my Ladybyrd page on Facebook.
Oh wow,
I
that's
remember the day when it popped up and said his name and that he was following my page. So I know he sees pictures, I know he sees things, but he has never physically seen them in person. If they were to see him anywhere, they would not know that that's their father, you know. My
It's just
verbal child,
it's
you know,
hard
my
to
twin
hear
girl,
you.
she's the one that's verbal. If she was to see him, she wouldn't know that's daddy or
It's
anybody,
hard
anything
to
like
hear
that.
you confess this, but I can tell you've had to confess it so many times that it just kind of flows out of you. But you know how strong you have to be in order to deal with all of this. You are a strong black woman, and I'm pretty sure you hear that a lot. But that's really an understatement because most of us,
Yeah, and I used to let it bother me a lot. Like I used to literally, it used to be to the point where like if he would go on his Facebook page and post something about the child he had with the woman he's still with while he was married to me, and
Mhm,
say like at one point I never forget. I guess it was the little girl's birthday. She was born a couple months than the twins,
mhm.
and so he went on and said, "Oh, it's my youngest daughter's birthday." And this was when I was still like this was the Renee, like I was in that mode, you know, that whole joke when they say, you know, this the Renee from the 99 2000s.
You're right,
That Renee, I was still in that Renee mode.
right, right.
So when I saw that, my immediate reaction was to post and comment and say, no, you have two other children. Did you forget that you had two kids with your wife at the time? Like
Exactly.
I posted this. I took a whole screenshot of it too when I
And for him to have
but
done so much wrong and just like walk away like it's nothing because he didn't want
right, like
anybody to
nothing
know.
happened. Like, you know, because it was the whole thing of he was so adamant about trying to say that I was lying.
Wow.
Like that was a whole thing. Like I had an interview not long ago, and the lady I was talking to her about it, and she was like, "Oh, can I play this clip?" So she played a clip, and it's on my YouTube channel, and it's called "The Good Guy Myth."
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to my Ladybyrd YouTube, there's a link,
Payment
there's a
below.
video that says "The Good Guy Myth,"
Mm-hmm.
and um, it's the best man from our wedding talking about what he knew about my ex-husband through the time they were friends
Mm-hmm.
leading up to the moment of the wedding, where at my wedding he's standing there at the altar saying how fine a woman is walking in the door that's probably one of my relatives or friends, and
Right.
saying how, man, I hit that, and you know, stuff like that, while he's standing at the altar waiting on me to walk
Getting
down the
ready to get
aisle.
married to you. Now, did his friend know that he was HIV positive at that time?
No, no. So he explains also in this video where he says when he got the call from his mom, they're telling him basically, I got mad because I found out he was cheating. And that I lied to the police and had him put in jail.
No. How long did he
And
stay in jail?
well, the first time they arrested him, his mom bonded him out. But
Mm,
then the state of South Carolina rearrested him because they saw what was happening. It was like, wait a minute. So he was doing this while he was in our state.
mm-hmm.
And then they realized another woman came forward and filed charges too. So
Wow.
they rearrested him. And that time when they rearrested him, he could not get bonded out. And so
Good.
he was in there until they extradited him to Florida to face the charges. And then from there, he went straight to prison.
Nice. How many years did he spend in prison as a result?
He got sentenced to those 5 years, but he got 6 months served because he sat in jail for 6 months before the sentencing date. And
Mm-hmm.
then he got 6 months of good behavior, so he ended up only doing 4 years. He's been out since March of 2012.
Okay. Well, at least, hey, he did the time. You did your part,
Yeah.
Queen, and I'm proud of you because it takes a lot of determination, I guess is the best word to say here, and a lot of control. You had a lot of control and a lot of determination. And I honor that because I don't think I have all of that in me. But I know that we've been going way longer than 20 minutes, but I just want to thank you for sharing your journey today with us. What kind of changes do you see yourself making in the community for the rest of 2023 and in the future?
Yeah, so for the rest of this year, I'm hoping that I can bring a lot more awareness to not only just HIV and AIDS, but just to a lot of different things. Because I know you and I talked off, off of the air, but I'm getting ready to start interviewing people myself and bringing a lot of their stories to light. I have a young man who was born positive. So he's going to be sharing what it's like, because a lot of people don't realize, yes, people are contracting this virus, but you also have people who were born with it, who this is all they know. Like they are literally born, they're virgins, but they have this virus. So, and so it's going to bring light to that. Um, Talking to other people that have other types of things. So not just HIV, other STDs, even people who are negative, but have seen how this virus has affected people around them, and they've become what we call allies to the cause. So I'm just going to continue doing that the rest of this year, and moving forward, staying in school, getting this doctorate. I'm going to be Dr. Ladybyrd. Look, I'm like, can they put Ladybyrd on my degree and not my real name? I would like that.
Yeah, you probably can do that. And we need more doctors, Black doctors like you. So I really
so that is my goal, to become that infectious disease physician, because like you say, you're not seeing a lot of that happening. And I really just want to be someone who, when I'm sitting there with someone who is also HIV positive, and they're telling me how they're feeling, why they're not taking their medicine, why they're not doing what they're supposed to do, I can literally be that doctor that can sit there and say to them, guess what? I understand. Yeah. I know exactly how you feel.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these doctors are so accustomed to the textbook reply or the textbook reasoning behind things, they forget that it's just a regular person. They are having these feelings because of whatever reason. And you don't have to always resort to a book to have compassion.
That part right there. That's why, listen, I'm glad we linked up, because I'm just so proud of you, because you're the epitome of persistence and perseverance. Like, I mean, you have persevered through all of this. And I'm pretty sure, there's much more to come from your podcast, from your live streams, your TikToks, your business associations, that you're going to link up with other people so you guys can really form a real organization that's going to create a dynamic movement for the people. And so I want to know, do you have any final advice to the audience that are watching us and who will watch this podcast in the future?
Yeah, I always say, just be health aware. Know about your health. Don't rely on anybody else's health to determine your health. Because you have a lot of people, they'll say, oh, well, my partner went and got this test or that test, I'm good. No, you might not be good. So you always want to be aware of what you're dealing with. Go get your annual physicals. Fellas, stop being afraid to get a prostate exam. It's not that bad. I understand, but it's not that bad. Go get it done.
And some of them getting it anyway.
You know what I mean? And ladies, don't be afraid to go and get these annual physicals either. I'm not going to just put it all on the men and say, hey, the men aren't doing what they're supposed to. There are women out here who are afraid to, check up on their health too. So everybody just always be health aware. Know your status. Know what is going on with your body. That is very important.
Thank you so much for that reminder, because we need to hear it. Well, guys, we're going to wrap up this show today. Miss Ladybyrd, it's been a complete honor. If you have at least 2 or 3 more minutes, please wait behind the scenes. I'm going to close out this show and say my goodbyes to everyone, okay?
All righty.
I'm going to remove you from the stream, but don't go anywhere. Right, guys, so make sure you pay attention. The website that's streaming below is Miss Ladybyrd's official website. You can find all of her material, her upcoming events, her podcast that she's going to be doing starting next Wednesday. I'm super excited for her. I'll be tuned in. Guys, I just want to leave you with some real serious facts, especially about women and how HIV epidemic has affected us. For African-American women, we're looking at a 57% diagnosis as of 2018. For white American women, 21% of white American women have HIV. 18% for Hispanic and Latina Americans, and 5% for the other races that have been diagnosed as of 2018. That is crazy stats. Crazy stats. We're talking about an 8% increase of new infections in the U.S. as of 2019. That was pre-COVID. So Guys, the topic that we talked about today was very near and dear to me because I have family members that are dealing with the same thing. A lot of us know some people that are very in close proximity of us who are dealing with the same thing. So it's important that we stay educated, protect yourselves out there. Until we meet again, guys, you have a blessed Sunday. And thanks again for tuning in to the Sisters Talk podcast. I'll see you guys next month. Bye, guys.